Picture this, a jungle clearing in West Africa. The year is 1892. Night has fallen and the drums are beating. 20 armed warriors stand in the darkness, their weapons raised, their eyes red with drink. Chained in front of them sits a row of condemned prisoners, men and women who will be executed before morning. No government official has come. No soldier dares enter. The colonial administrators have been warned to stay away. But someone is walking toward that clearing. She is 5 feet tall. Her red hair has gone white with years. Her body has been ravaged by 16 years of recurring malaria. Her feet are bare. Her hands hold nothing. Nothing except a pair of knitting needles. She walks directly into the middle of the warriors. She does not plead. She does not negotiate. She sits down on a log between the condemned and their executioners, and she begins to knit. She will not move. She will not flinch. She will sit there all night if she must. And those warriors, men who had never been stopped by any force on earth, stand in the firelight staring at this small white woman. And one by one, without a word, they lower their weapons. By dawn, the executions have been called off. The prisoners are alive. No government, no army, no weapons. Just a small woman, her knitting needles, and a God who had been building her for this moment since she was 11 years old, standing at a loom in one of the most violent slums in Victorian Scotland. This scene played out again and again across the years, sometimes at night, sometimes in the glare of afternoon. Always alone, always without reinforcement. What you're about to hear is the story of the woman who made it possible. Have you ever been told your background disqualifies you? That you lack the platform, the education, the physical strength, the connections that matter? What if everything you have been through, every dark season, every closed door, everything that broke you open, was not the obstacle to your calling, but the very material your calling is made from? What few people know is that the secret to this woman's authority was not supernatural giftedness. It was not a dramatic Damascus Road experience that set her apart. It was a set of disciplines built in absolute obscurity, forged through suffering, and fed daily by a love so complete it had no name except surrender. She was born into a violent, alcoholic home in the Scottish slums. She worked in a factory from the age of 11. She was terrified of cows. She was afraid to cross a busy street alone. She once confessed she could not meditate, and yet the history books of West Africa call her the White Queen of Okoyong, the mother of all peoples, a woman who went where no single, unprotected woman had ever dared go, and whose legacy outlasted the British Empire itself. Her name was Mary Slessor, and this is her story. Comment below with "I am ready to go anywhere, provided it be forward." If you are ready to go where others refuse to go, pay what others refuse to pay, and surrender the last thing you have been holding back from God today. And stay with us until the very end of this video, where we reveal the 3 hidden disciplines that kept Mary's fire burning for 39 years, which will enable you to run with endurance the race that God has specifically set before you. The world does not begin by giving us what we need to fulfill our calling. Sometimes it begins by taking everything away, so that what remains is the only thing God can use. Mary Mitchell Slessor was born on the 2nd of December, 1848, in Aberdeen, Scotland. The second of 7 children in a family one drunk Saturday night from complete collapse. Her father, Robert, was a cobbler and a violent alcoholic. Every Saturday without fail, Mary and her mother sat in silence at the kitchen table, sewing or knitting through the long hours, waiting in what the biography calls sickening apprehension for the sound of uncertain footsteps on the stairs. When he finally arrived, he threw the dinner they had saved for him into the fire. Sometimes he threw Mary into the street. She wandered alone in the dark, sobbing. On other nights, she ran through back alleys. The biography uses the exact phrase, "like a hunted thing," rushing to the pawnbroker with a parcel her mother had prepared, scraping together enough to feed the family for another week, then hurrying back, answering her mother's anxious eyes with a glad light in her own. A kiss was her reward. This was her childhood. Not a season of trial she chose. A furnace she was thrown into without her consent. And yet the biography makes an observation every viewer must hear. Suffering in the innocent has its compensations. It deepened her sympathy and pity for others. It made her the fierce champion of little children and the refuge of the weak and oppressed. It prepared her for dealing with the drunken tribes amongst whom she came to dwell. She paid with her childhood. And that is precisely what it produced. The compassion she carried into Africa was not taught in a classroom. It was shaped on a Saturday night, waiting in the dark for a father who came home wrong. By 11, she was a half-timer in the jute mills of Dundee. Half the day at the loom, half the day at the factory school, 6 days a week, standing in dust and deafening noise. By 14, she was full-time, 12 hours a day, no school, only the machinery. But here is what she did with those hours. She propped open a book of scripture on the loom and read a sentence at a time between cycles, learning in stolen moments, building a world inside herself that no factory could enter or destroy. She later said of the Bible, "The study of it was less a duty than a joy." It was like reading a message addressed especially to herself, containing news of surpassing personal interest and import. The discipline is visible here. Not formal training, not seminary, but a mill girl reading the Word of God by loomlight, memorizing it in the spaces between shifts, building on the only foundation that would hold when everything else shook. She was converted through the words of a widow who gathered slum children, pointed to her fire, and warned them of eternal burning. The words went like arrows to her heart. She repented and believed. Her comment years later names the theological backbone of her entire ministry. Hellfire had driven her into the kingdom, but once there she found it a kingdom of love and mercy, and she never sought to bring anyone in by the same road of fear. Fear opens the door. Love becomes the dwelling. Mercy becomes the method. As the years passed, she surrendered more to Christ's influence. The biography recording his love as so strong, so tender, so pitiful, that it won her completely. She later distilled her entire ministry into one sentence. It is not work, but love. It is not ease, but Jesus. It is not what we do, but what he does through us. In the worst streets of Dundee, Mary began to preach. When a gang leader swung a lead weight at her face to make her flinch, she never blinked. The metal shaved her forehead. He stared, said, "She's game, boys," and the whole group walked in. Years later, a photograph arrived from that same man, now a respectful family man, grateful for what had been the turning point of his life. On another night, a bully driving boys into the meeting with a whip refused to enter himself. Mary turned and said, "I'll bear it for you if you'll go in." He threw down the whip and gave himself to Christ that day. The love that would one day stand between warriors and condemned prisoners was being trained right here. And it cost her something every time. Her brother Robert had announced he would become a missionary. He emigrated to Jamaica and died a week after landing. His death was a bitter grief, and it turned her thoughts more directly to the mission field. Could she fill her brother's place? Her mother had shaped her with two sayings. When one duty jostles another, one is not a duty. And, thank God for what you receive and what you do not receive. When news reached Dundee in 1874 that David Livingstone had died on his knees in a hut in Zambia, something in Mary Slessor broke open and never fully closed again. She applied to the mission board. Single, no formal theology, no financial connections. Her reasoning was this: the people at home were within sight of church spires and within hearing of church bells. Whilst down in the slums of Africa, millions knew nothing of the redemptive power of Christ. She was accepted. The night before she sailed, she told a friend, "Goodbye," and passionately, "Pray for me." Her mother's words went with her. "You are my child, given to me by God, and I have given you back to him. Where he sends you, there I would have you be." At Liverpool docks, boarding the SS Ethiopia, She saw dozens of large barrels of whiskey being loaded onto the same ship, bound for the West African coast. She looked at the casks. She looked at her one small suitcase. One account records her words. Scores of casks and only one missionary. She paid with her family, her security, and every future she had imagined, and she sailed straight toward the darkness. Most people answer a partial call. They go, but they bring their comfort with them. Mary arrived in Calabar, present-day Nigeria, in September 1876. The mission compound was orderly, insulated, properly European. Within her first month, she knew she was in the wrong place. She moved into the village, ate the local food, cut her hair, walked barefoot. She sent most of her salary home and lived on almost nothing. The other missionaries called her eccentric, reckless, wild. She simply stripped away every cultural armor that separated her from the people she had come to serve. She threw herself into ethic, not from a textbook, but by sitting in courtyards for hours, absorbing tone and idiom, entering the thought world of the people. After a few years, they said something never said of any white missionary before. She has an ethic mouth. She spoke like one of them, not at them, like them. Her pace. Christ was never in a hurry. He that believeth shall not make haste. A friend told her, "Go and work. That is what God means us to do." She had her answer. God uses obedience, not polish. It was during these early years that she first encountered twin murder. The belief, one of every pair of twins, was fathered by an evil spirit. So both were killed and the mother driven into the forest alone to die. When Mary first ran toward a mother's cry in the night, she arrived too late. She found the babies already dead. Something hardened in her, a holy, immovable refusal. This would not continue. She contracted malaria and returned to Scotland. In 1883, she went back once more as her mother's illness deepened. Her mother died in late 1885, her sister Janie not long after. She returned to Africa in 1886 with nothing left to go home to. She wrote to a friend, "Heaven is now nearer to me than Britain, and no one will be anxious about me if I go up country." She paid with her family. A second time, the last tie to Scotland was cut away, and in its place came a new freedom, the final fear removed. She looked north, toward Okoyong. Two declarations carried her forward. "Why should I fear? I am on a royal mission, and at every impossible threshold. Lord, the task is impossible for me, but not for thee. Lead the way and I will follow." Before we follow Mary into the jungles of Okoyong and count the full price she paid to go where no single, unprotected woman had ever dared live, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the people who make stories like this possible. The research behind an episode like this takes weeks of digging through archives, letters, and long-forgotten records. Stories the world has largely forgotten, but that the church desperately needs to remember. Our Cloud of Witnesses members are the ones who keep this work alive. They are the reason these witnesses are not buried in silence. If you would love to be part of the community that ensures these hidden legacies are told, and told well, hit the Join button on the channel homepage, or click the membership link in the description below. You will not just be supporting a channel. You will be standing in the same spirit as the witnesses themselves and encouraging many others to run with endurance the race God has set before them. No single woman had ever lived in Okoyong. Completely alone, completely unprotected by colonial forces or institutional safety. The Okoyong people were feared even by the coastal Efik, known for tribal warfare, human sacrifice, poison bean ordeals, and the ritual killing of twins. Mary later made careful inquiry and discovered the full scale of what she was entering. The number of lives sacrificed annually in ritual killings at funerals, poison trials, and decapitations could not have averaged fewer than 300 people within a radius of 20 miles. Every year, 300 lives. She went in alone, with her adopted children. The night of her arrival is one of the most extraordinary scenes in the history of Christian missions. Rain fell in torrents. The canoe deposited her at the landing beach in darkness. She was to walk 4 miles through unknown jungle. And here is what that procession looked like. First came a boy of 11, a box on his head, his feet slipping in the black mud. Behind him, a boy of 8, in tears, carrying pots. Then a child of 3, weeping loudly, stumbling to keep up. Close behind him, a girl of 5, shaking with sobs. And at the rear, their white mother, a bundle under one arm, a baby across her shoulders, pulling herself forward by grabbing branches and twigs, singing nonsense songs to lighten the way for the little ones even as tears were perilously close to her own eyes. The biography stops and asks, had ever such a company marched out against the entrenched forces of evil? And answers, he often chooses the weakest things of this world to confound and defeat the mighty. Before entering the forest that night, she could not form a sentence in prayer. She could only look up and utter one word, Father. They arrived to find the village deserted. The chief's mother had died that morning. 2 slaves appeared. Mary undressed the children, hushed them to sleep, and sat in her white garments alone in the darkness and waited. Then she built. Constituting herself architect, clerk of works, and chief laborer, she constructed her home with her own hands, filling mud into walls, shaping furniture from clay, planting a sanctuary in territory that had known nothing but blood and fear. The people gave her a name that belonged only to their own, Ma. She began to run into the jungle at night whenever word reached her that twins had been born, the precise horror of what she was racing to prevent. The babies' backs were broken, their bodies crushed into clay pots, taken out not through the doorway but through a hole broken in the back wall, then sealed behind them as if they had never existed, and left in the forest to be eaten by insects and wild animals, sometimes placed alive into the pots. The mother was driven out to die alone. Mary ran every time she heard. She saved hundreds. Among the adopted children, one stood apart. Susie, a rescued Okoyong twin, became the deepest love of Mary's life. At 14 months, she pulled boiling water over herself. Mary nursed her for 13 days without leaving, the child whispering, me, me, me in the dark. One Sunday morning she died in Mary's arms. Oh, the empty place, Mary wrote. She kept going, but the greatest test of her entire life came when the eldest son of her chief died. In Okoyong, when a man of rank died, the custom was absolute. Slaves and accused persons must be poisoned to identify who had bewitched him, their deaths accompanying him into the spirit world. Within hours, more than a dozen people had been seized and condemned. Mary and a missionary colleague named Mr. Ovens kept watch through the day and through the night, guarding the prisoners with nothing but their presence, while armed men drank and danced around them. When a woman was unchained and led toward the poison, Mary ran after her, touched her shoulder, and whispered, "Run!" The woman ran. Mary flew back to Mr. Ovens. "Quick, take her and hide her." He did. For days they held the line. She wrote through the nights, "Prayer has been my solace and strength. With passion and entreaty, I beseeched God for guidance in the struggle to come." When it was finally over, the chief's son was buried without a single life sacrificed. The first time in the tribe's dark history, such a death had occurred without ritual killing. Chief Edom came alone at night, knelt, and held her feet. We were all weary of the old customs, but no single person or house among us had the power to break them off, because they had become the ecosystem. She had not just stopped an execution, she had cracked the foundation of a centuries-old system of terror. Janie, a different child from Susie, the very first twin Mary had ever rescued, grew up at her side, became a teacher and evangelist, and trained others to rescue twins exactly as Mary had rescued her. The first life saved grew up to save others. That is the compound interest of a surrendered life. You cannot calculate it. You can only begin it. And through all of it, Mary kept her most recognizable weapon. When two factions faced each other with weapons drawn, she walked between them, sat down, and began to knit. She would not move. She would not leave. On one occasion, she stayed a full day and a full night until both sides, hungry and exhausted, went home without a shot fired. That authority, the authority that made armed men lower their weapons at the approach of a barefoot woman with knitting needles, was not a gift. It was a purchase. 20 years of showing up, giving away, suffering loss, and staying anyway. You cannot buy that authority with a title. You cannot manufacture it with a platform. It only comes one way. In 1892, the colonial government appointed her to preside over the native court for Okoyong, the first woman to hold any formal colonial authority in British Africa. She had not sought it. It found her. Mary Kingsley told her, "I would give anything to possess your belief, but I can't." Her faith drew unbelievers close. Once, personal happiness appeared. A younger missionary named Charles Morrison proposed. The mission board refused to post him to the dangerous interior. She chose the mission. "My work is my marriage," she said. "I have more children than any woman could birth." The price most people are unwilling to pay is not the dramatic sacrifice that everyone sees. It is the daily, grinding, invisible cost of endurance, continuing to pay when the crowd has gone home, when the body is broken, and when no one is watching. Every morning at 5:30, Mary took a fine pen and opened her Bible. Her method: underline the governing sentences, spend 3 days on a single chapter rather than move on without understanding it. Her Bibles still exist. Their margins contain notes like, "God is never behind time. The secret of all failure is disobedience. Unspiritual man cannot stand success." Once a girl asked for something to read, and she handed her the Bible. "Take that. It has made me a changed lassie." This was not devotional performance. This was a woman building her inner world before entering the outer one, every morning, without exception, for 39 years. What it produced was an interior life so deep that government officials came to her for counsel on matters they could not resolve, and left unable to explain what she knew that they did not. When she needed solitude to pray, and the people of Okoyong followed her everywhere, their culture making solitude both incomprehensible and rude. She rose before the village stirred. In the dark, before a single child woke, she slipped out to pour out her heart to God where no one could follow. She would not let circumstances steal her inner life. Her personal testimony on prayer is one of the most direct statements of documented faith in missionary history. "My life is one long daily hourly record of answered prayer, for physical health, for mental overstrain, for guidance given marvelously, for errors and dangers averted, for food provided at the exact hour needed. I can testify with a full and often wonder-stricken awe that I believe God answers prayer. I know God answers prayer." In her 60s, too weak to walk long distances, she was pushed through villages in a cape cart, a bamboo chair on wheels carried by her girls. Still preaching, still arriving at disputes, still going. When a friend paid for her first real holiday in 40 years of service, she climbed the hill behind the hotel each morning and spent the day reading her Bible and praying. She wrote, "In the silence of beauty and peace, I communed with God. He is so near and so dear." The holiday, she said, had been worth waiting a lifetime for. Not the sea, the communion. When the Order of St. John arrived, approved by King George V, she placed the badge in a box beneath her bed and went back to work. At the ceremony, "If I have done anything in my life, it has been easy because the Master has gone before." Her letter to the church, "I am Mary Slessor, nothing more and none other than the unworthy, unprofitable, but most willing servant of the King of Kings." 15 years after her arrival, Okoyong's first communion was held. 7 of the 11 baptized were her own children. Tears stood in her eyes. When news of the First World War arrived, she tried to rise and could not. Her girls carried her to bed. The fever lasted a fortnight. She died on the 13th of January, 1915, in a mud hut in Ikot-Oku, Nigeria. She was 66. Her final written words were found mid-sentence, unfinished. Her last spoken prayer was in Efik, O Abasi Sanamiyok. Oh God, release me, not despair. A soldier, finished, ready to come home. The girl's lamentation filled the hut. My mother is dead, my mother is dead. We should be counted as slaves now that our mother is dead. Old Mammy Fuller, who had known Mary since her first days in Africa, stood at the graveside and said one word. Safe. Then, I've been just near heaven all the time. A small box of her possessions was sent back to Scotland. Inside, 2 worn Bibles, a hymn book, a pebble brooch, her mother's ring, a compass, a fountain pen, and a large packet of letters from officials, chiefs, missionaries, and children, all overflowing with love and gratitude. She had often called herself a rich woman. In those letters, you understand why. No estate, no savings, no monument, just Bibles filled with handwritten notes, her mother's ring, and hundreds of letters from people whose lives had been permanently changed. This is the accounting of the kingdom. You stayed to the end. As promised, here is what kept Mary's fire burning for 39 years. First, the Word as daily surgery. Fine pen in hand. 3 days on a single chapter if needed, every morning at 5:30. She built her inner world before entering the outer one. She could not sustain what she had not built. Neither can you. Second, prayer that refuses to be stolen. When solitude was blocked, she rose before the village stirred to find God where no one could follow. She paid for that prayer life with sleep, comfort, and the soft bed she could have had. What it produced was an authority no institution on earth could grant or remove. Third, total daily surrender. Every time the calling required something more, she released it without negotiation. She did not calculate. She did not hold back a reserve. And every time she released something, she gained something no human power could take away. Near the end, she posed the challenge. Where are the soldiers of the cross? Why should the Queen have good soldiers and not the King of Kings? These disciplines are not the property of missionaries. They are not reserved for people with her history, her temperament, or her level of suffering. They are available to you today. The path she walked is open. Mary Slessor was afraid of cows. She could not meditate. She was a mill girl from the slums who read scripture between loom cycles and rose before dawn, to find God in the silence before the village stirred. God did not use her because she was extraordinary. He used her because she said yes, and kept saying yes, beyond what anyone thought one person could pay. Comment with "I am ready to go anywhere, provided it be forward." If you are ready to stop calculating the price and take the next step God is asking of you. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, like, and subscribe to Cloud of Witnesses for more life-changing stories of faith that will equip you to boldly fulfill the call of God in your life. This week, open your Bible with a pen. Choose one passage and spend 20 minutes on it. Not to finish it, but to understand it. Write what you discover in the margins. Helen Roseveare walked alone into war-torn Congo as a doctor, was captured by rebels, and survived what should have destroyed her. What does a woman do when God allows the worst to happen? What does she say to a generation that measures His favor by comfort? Could her answer be what your faith is missing? Check out this next video to discover her survival story, the principle that transformed her suffering into unshakable faith, and the question that will permanently reframe how you understand your calling from God.